I'm a doctor and a comedian. And I started doing comedy because I'm a bad doctor.
My parents are Holocaust survivors, so kind of urged me toward medicine. So yeah, it might be a good thing to do. So I didn't want to disappoint them. So I kept on doing both. All the while, I did emergency medicine because you could, do 2-3 shifts and then you got 2 weeks off.
Wow.
And you come back and then do two, but they were 24-hour shifts. So, I would do a shift Monday, Wednesday, and then maybe Friday, and then I'm off for 2 or 3 weeks. And then I could go on the road, do the comedy clubs and, God, I went all over the place. When I had my kids, that's when I did my hiatus.
Yeah.
More or less. I would do a local gig once in a while, but, I stopped going on the road. I didn't want to be an absentee dad. Some of my comedian friends, they went on the road for a month, they come back. 2 things happen. The kids don't know who they are. They get frightened. Who's that? And I looked at my daughter and I didn't want to roll her dice.
Right.
I'll roll my dice. I could eat tuna. I don't care. Right. I don't want her to, you know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't want to roll her dice. Let her roll her dice, not me.
Dr. Bill Miller, we're talking in the pregame, and he lived in Encino, my hometown. He did stand-up at LA Cabaret, place I first started. You're a seasoned doctor and a seasoned comedian. I'm just a ham and egger. But I'm so thrilled to talk to you about your career, because what I love about it is, one is it's got its own thumbprint. But also, I want to get into, your hiatus that you did, for your kids and all that. It's very dynamic. It's very, it's not talked about a lot. So let's go back, though. Let's go back. Are you from Chicago? Where were you born? And how did you start stand-up?
I was born in New York. I lived there till I was 10 and a half. Then my parents moved to Los Angeles, so I had no choice. I had to go with them. At 10 and a half, I couldn't fend for myself in the subways of New York. So I lived in LA for a while until I was 22, 23, and then I went to medical school at Northwestern. Then came back to LA and did an internship, a surgical internship, and started working emergency rooms. All the while, I wanted to be a comedian. I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch the comedians on the Ed Sullivan Show. And I used to wait, until the comedian was on before I went to bed as a little kid. And, I wanted to do it. My parents kind of urged me toward medicine. So, yeah, it might be a good thing to do. So I didn't want to disappoint them. So I kept on doing both. And then I remember the summer before medical school, I used to go to the Comedy Store every night, and I would go literally every night as an audience member. And then I started, the guys would see us and then, you go out after in front of the Comedy Store, they're all hanging out. So I started talking to a few of them. And then I said, I always wanted to do this. And they said, do it. So my first Christmas vacation from medical school, I came back and I remember signing up was Monday night. It was amateur night. I signed up. I got 5 minutes. I wrote some jokes. I got some laughs and I was hooked. That was it. So I got to do this. And I went back to medical school, after the Christmas vacation. And I found there's a newspaper in Chicago called The Reader. It was a free newspaper that had all the what's going on and, young people's newspaper. And they were talking about their showcase clubs. So that was the start of the mushrooming of comedy clubs, So I went to those and started meeting other comedians. And that was it for me. That was absolutely it. I was 23, 24, 23.
Yeah.
And the people that were hanging around the Chicago comedy scene at the time, Tom Dreesen was the patriarch. He had already started going, to the next 2-3 levels. And he would come back into town and, go to these showcases, Marshall Warfield, Brad Sanders, O'Brien and Severa. There was some pretty, people that eventually became pretty big in the comedy world. Jimmy Alec. So I started doing that. I started working the comedy clubs, and then eventually they had the Comedy Womb and the Comedy Cottage in 2 suburbs in Chicago. So the comedians would get, you get 2 shows a night. You go to one club and then drive over to the other club. You get 15 minutes. And then when I went back for summer vacations, I was working the Comedy Store and the Improv and started going from there. And then, you just keep on going, one foot in front of the other, and someone sees your work, say, hey, you want to do some colleges? Yeah, okay. So we started doing some college tours and things.
So you started doing college tours, and how long? When did you start doing that? How old were you then?
I was it was probably when I was after medical school, so 27, 28, something like that.
You go to medical school, you start doing stand-up. Now, when do you start? How do you segue into being a practicing doctor, and how does that look like? Or are you doing it at the same time, or what does that look like?
I was doing it at the same time. I started working emergency rooms, and I would do very low acuity places. Like there was an industrial clinic, like in the middle of Commerce, where there's a lot of factories. Back in the day, there was a lot of factories and
LA.
So,
Commerce in LA.
Yeah, Commerce, LA. And if people got hurt, they would go to the industrial clinic. If they had an industrial accident, they got a cut, a laceration or something. So I started doing those. And then when you start doing those, there's other emergency groups that would cover higher acuity places, but still not like Cedars. There's a whole gradation of what kind of hospital. So I started stepping up, and then, you have to do these CMEs, they're called continuing medical education. Mm-hmm. So you have to do those. And I started reading all the literature, and I went to some conferences, otherwise you lose your license. And as I got more and more proficient, I started working in higher acuity places until I started working a couple hospitals that were fairly high acuity. You get trauma off the road. You wouldn't get much penetrating trauma, but you got a lot of blunt trauma. It was out in the desert on the way to Palm Springs. So all these guys on their ATVs, and back then they were 3-wheelers. I don't know if you remember it. And they're all riding around. Most of them have like a 6-pack on board before they get on these things. And hey, how you doing? And then they flip the thing over. They break something, so they come into to my hospital. So I started doing that. All the while, I did emergency medicine because you could, do 2-3 shifts, and then you got 2 weeks off.
Wow.
And you come back and then do 2, but they were 24-hour shifts. So, I would do a shift Monday, Wednesday, and then maybe Friday, and then I'm off for 2 or 3 weeks. And then I can go on the road, do it at comedy clubs. And, I went all over the place. I mean, clubs in Seattle, San Francisco, all the San Francisco area, the Northern California area. There was in San Jose, San Leandro, and and then went to Texas and Oklahoma City, Seattle, and went to, New York, Boston. So Florida, did a lot of clubs.
The writing process, when you're writing to the and studying and doing your medical continuation studies, I guess that's not all the time. Now, those comes in waves. So you did have downtimes where you could write during the day and perform at night?
Well, I was not, in those days, a very disciplined writer where I said every morning, and I think a lot of comedians were like that. You say, okay, today I'm going to write for 45 minutes or an hour. Mm-hmm. You go through life, you go through your day, and all of a sudden something comes to your head. And now I take the paper and pen out, and I start, making some notes on it. And then in those days, a lot of comedians, we go, we travel. There'd be 3 of us. There's a headliner, an opener, and a middle act. And we'd all be sharing a condo back in those days, a comedy condo. A lot of clubs had that. You all share a car, you share a condo. And so you sit around all day with the comics, you're shooting it. And then, hey, I got an idea. What do you think of this? Yeah. And back then, the comedy clubs, it was, now it's not like it was then. Back then, it was Tuesday through Sunday. Sometimes Wednesday through Sunday, and you're doing 1 show Wednesday, Thursday, 2 Friday, sometimes 3 Saturday and 1 Sunday. So you're doing 8 to 10 shows sometimes in a week. So if you have an idea on Tuesday or Wednesday, and if you were vigilant and disciplined on your craft, you could come up with a minute by Sunday. So you'd go on the road for 2-3 weeks. Hopefully you come back with 2 or 3 new minutes. And that's how the writing that I did most of the time. Now, years later, I get up in the morning and I do my routine like everybody does in the routine. So, and then I come and sit down by my desk. I just read The War of Art, which if you haven't read it, it's
The War of Art, not The War, but The War of Art.
The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield.
Ah, what's that?
It's it's a book on how to unlock. Let me see. I think I still have it here. It's right here on my desk because I just read it. I underlined it. I don't know if you can see this. I don't know him. I don't know Stephen Pressfield, but a good friend. But a good.
And win your inner creative battles. Nice. Yeah.
Because a good friend of mine, Adam Ferrara, said, "Doc, you got to read this book." So I did, and he's right. You know, as a creative person, we have a lot of resistance in our mind. You know, he talks about how to get creative and how to block out your blocks and then let the creative process flow. So lately I've been getting up every morning and sit at my desk. And I found that once I start writing at my computer, you know, I'm typing. Once I got an idea and I start typing, all of a sudden my fingers keep going, even though the thought that I wanted to write about is gone, but something else is coming up. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's that discipline of tapping into your subconscious where all the good stuff happens.
Right.
A lot of bad stuff happens in there, but a lot of good stuff happens too.
Right. And when you wake up in the morning, that's when you write, and maybe it's this in the book, your mind's a little more opened up and freer and more creative. Isn't that true?
I think so. You know, but I have notes during the day, and I have my phone with voice memos, and I'll get a bunch of those and I'll listen to them, and I'll listen to 10 and I go, oh, how did I even come up with these? But 2 of them go, oh, that's good. And those are the ones I start writing about. And then, one thing leads to another. And, it's not like 4 hours a day I'm writing, but, if I sit there for half an hour to 45 minutes, you come up with some stuff. And then I got to find a new material night at St. E's or, Laugh Factory or somewhere in Chicago that I can go up and try it. And that's, as you know, as a comedian, you may think it's funny as, can we curse?
Yeah.
You may think it's funny as shit. And you get up there and the crowd goes, what?
Yeah.
So you go, okay, it's not funny to them. So, that's my process now.
Yeah. And I find for me also, I'm not doing stand-up right now, but, late at night when your subconscious is kind of rested and, you're just flying, you're just not censoring. And early in the morning, that it's interesting. We don't talk about that enough that, how to, your creative mind and because it's such a psychological thing. And at that point, there really is no substitute for stage time, which adds another part of the unconscious competence that you end up getting, with the writing process and performing.
Yeah. There's like a pilot needs airtime, a comic needs stage time, period. Mm-hmm. It's an exact parallel. And if you don't get the stage time, I write some of my best lines riffing on stage,
right?
Because your subconscious is, when I first started, there was a comedian in Chicago, Paul Kelly. And he said, Bill, just go up there and talk. And I went, that's when I was new, really young. I went, what do you mean? Just go up there and talk. He says, you're a comedian. Your subconscious is going to find the punchline. That's what you do.
Wow.
That's what comedians do.
Yeah.
And he's right. You went on stage when someone heckles or asks you a question, does something, and then you start going, and all of a sudden these like gems are coming out. Where was that?
Right.
Why couldn't I tap into that well, with my conscious mind?
Right.
Because that's.
I want to go back to when you're just starting out and you're starting to go on, you're doing, you're being a doctor and you're being a comedian. Your parents are like, what's with Michigan and Billy? Why is he doing this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. It was a lot more than what's with Michigan and Billy. It was like, what are you doing? You're shaming us. What are you doing? Oh, God. Yeah, there was an article. Yes, my parents are Holocaust survivors. So.
Yeah, and we're in New York. My grandmother is a Russian concentration camp survivor from before Hitler invented it.
Yeah.
So where did they live in New York?
We lived in Washington Heights, 176th and Broadway.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What did they say? They didn't like it.
Well, no, they liked it. My dad was in. his family in Europe was in the garment trade.
Mm-hmm.
So he started, working for somebody, and then he opened up a factory himself and started working, for himself, making women's coats. And then he got burned out after a few years, and he got like a rooming house, a hotel kind of thing, him and another guy. Mm-hmm. And then he didn't like that, so he went back to the garment trade. And he had a factory in Bradley Beach, right next to Asbury Park. So we used to go there in the summers. And then after a couple of years, he sold that and didn't know what he wanted to do. My mother had a cousin who was living in LA. And the cousin said, Henry, that's my dad's name, rest in peace. He said, hey, Henry, come out to California for a visit. So he went in December, and it was 81 degrees. And it was beautiful. And he came back and he said, we're going to California. And everyone said, what? He said, if I can make X amount of money in New York, I'm going to go to California, even if I can only make half that.
Probably more in California.
He did okay. He provided for us. I got to hand it to him. So, and then we went to LA, and he opened up a factory in Glendale, and he had that for like 20 something years, making women's coats.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
So and now eventually, how did they, when you started to progress and you said, look, this is what I'm doing, and you're showing that you can do both. What did they say?
They still thought, they looked upon it like not, my dad said to me, because he liked comedians. He liked Buddy Hackett. He liked Don Rickles. We loved comedians. And my parents were very, very funny. It's hysterical.
Of course they were. They're very funny, both of them. Yeah,
no, they are. They were hysterical.
My mom, all of ours were.
they do. You're absolutely right. So he said to me, look, you think you're going to be Don Rickles? To be mediocre, anyone can be mediocre. I said, what? Well, you never saw my show. How do you know? I've gotten standing ovation,
Yeah.
And so anyway, when I had my kids, that's when I did my hiatus.
Yeah.
More or less. I would do a local gig once in a while, but, I stopped going on the road. I didn't want to be an absentee dad. Some of my comedian friends, they went on the road for a month. They come back. Two things happen. The kids don't know who they are. They get like frightened. Who's that? And then there's someone else having dinner with the mother. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to be that absentee dad. And so then I kind of put it aside and raised my kids and did everything the right way. Yeah. I bought a house in the suburbs. My parents would come visit, and, it was a nice house, and they'd go, oh, I'm very proud of you, son. Well, you could have told me when I got on the television shows that I got on. He didn't say that. I thought that. I didn't tell it to him.
Yeah.
So, and then, but then, toward the end of his life, my mother, she realized that I'm doing both. And she goes, you like it? You're having a good time? Good for you. Because she saw that I was a good father and a good family, a husband while it lasted. And I provided for my kids. So she couldn't say anything. They went to college. They had, they got bar mitzvah. They did everything that you're supposed to do if you're a Jewish dad, and for your kids. And they did all that. So
did you raise them in LA or Chicago?
Chicago. My oldest daughter was almost 3, or she was 3 when we moved. And my younger daughter, my middle child, she was born in May, and we moved there in July or August. I went there in July to start the training program. I went back to retrain. I was what they call grandfathered into board certification in emergency medicine. Because back when I started, it was it was in its infancy as a specialty, and they needed board certified people. So if you did so many hours and did so many classes, you could challenge the boards. And I did, and I passed them, and I got my boards there, but I got burned out, and I went back to do anesthesia. So the kids were raised.
When you took your hiatus, you were kind of cooking, right? You were doing shows. You said you were doing.
Oh yeah.
It's hard to walk away, but also not hard at the same time. How'd you reconcile that a little bit?
Well, here's the thing. It's when you're on the road and doing a lot of shows, you're sharp. It's like a major leaguer playing every day. You know what I mean? You come, bring it. I got this. Bring it. Okay. And then I started doing, when my daughter was born, I didn't want to go on the road. I started working more as a doctor because I wanted to provide, for my family. As you know, as a comedian, you can be, 6, 7 weeks in a row, you're on the road. All of a sudden you got nothing coming in for 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, what's interesting, real quick, just so you understand, my head is I was off and on since I'm 19. And then just as my kids got born, I was doing a full year and a half going up, and those pitches were getting slow. And I'm able to everything just slows down and you're able to go, I could do this, I could do that. And I was like, there's 2 ways I can go here. Kids are already, they were 1 and 3. And I was like, I said, I either have to do this every night and write every day to try to be the best I can. And I also had a business. And I said, I got to take the business and double down on the business. And I took a long hiatus. I did stand up on maybe 3 or 4 months ago, just because I knew I was going to start another business and I said, I have a window,
Yeah.
And now I'm off again. So I was never really, like that. But this is a big subject because Eddie Brill was talking to me one time and he's like, I'm a happy guy. I don't have any regrets for choosing this life. He's a booker for anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
You know who he is. For the Letterman show. And I was like, why? I'm thinking he's telling me that because he's maybe kind of second guessing a little bit, because it's always a thing to choose, because comedian, you're going to go all in.
You have to go all in, but some of the guys that I started with in LA, Mike Binder, he was saying to me, he said, to be, and at that point, Carson, if a good comedian went on Carson, and had a great show, they would pop and they're like, boom, now you're in the next, you're up there. That started not happening that much. There were a lot of good comedians that went on Carson. And it wasn't that big catapult. And he said, to be the next guy that pops on Carson, it doesn't happen as often as it did, years prior. So he started writing. And then I thought, same thing that you were thinking of. I got kids, what do I want to do? So I started doing a lot of hospital stuff. I would do a lot of hospital staff parties and the annual doctors, So I did those and I got booked. One company hired me. They owned 110 hospitals. And every couple of weeks, I would do a show. They'd fly me and I'd do the show. The good thing is the money was very lucrative. The bad thing is, you got a stage time where, I'm working now 45 minutes a month or 45 minutes every 3 weeks instead of 45 minutes a night, 5 nights a week.
But you got to stay in shape a little bit.
A little bit, but I still, and then when I got the laugh stop in Newport Beach, I was a little rusty, not rusty, but I wasn't as sharp as I was, the last, and and that was frustrating. So I said, I either got to jump all in and do what I called a showbiz residency. I was going to try and not go on the road as a comic, but try and get a job in production. Because, as comedians, we have great ideas. We, punch stuff up. And I didn't mind doing that. I produced a short film with a friend of mine. So I kind of like that. As long as you got the creative process going, that was okay with me. And I thought, okay, I got this daughter, I got a wife, and I got to, pay all the bills. And how am I going to do that? And I thought, and I actually, sat down with paper and pencil and tried to do soul searching. And I said, look, I would hate myself if I went one way. It didn't work out the way I had hoped it went. Cause showbiz is a crapshoot no matter how you are. If you could be, diligent, you can make some kind of living, you can grind out a living, you can get a job, lash it on somewhere. But to make the kind of impact in showbiz that I wanted to make, and I'm sure you wanted to make, it's not, it's still, let's roll the dice. Mm-hmm. And I looked at my daughter and I didn't want to roll her dice.
Right.
I'll roll my dice. I could eat tuna. I don't care. Right. I don't want her to, you know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't want to roll her dice. Let her roll her dice, not me. Mm. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And, I didn't want to say a part of me died, but a part of me hibernated. So I went back because I always wanted to be in showbiz or something else where I could, orate, a lawyer, even a lawyer. But so I worked as a doctor, and I'm glad I did. And I tried to use my my personality, my comedic sense to try and, I had an audience of one every time I was with a patient, and if I could see, what they were, I could maybe get a smile out of them. Yeah, I still got it.
Yeah.
And then when the kids were grown, I started working Zanies again. And then they started hiring me, and I started working. They hired me as feature again. Then I started headlining Zanies and working the other clubs and, in Chicago.
Zanies, by the way, on YouTube 4 years ago, you posted it. Great sets, on there.
Oh, thank you.
I suggest seeing it, everybody. It's really good.
Thanks a lot. And I just did a show at the hospital where I used to work, daytime show, because I have a company now. I started a Dr. Bill's traveling medicine show where laughter is the best medicine.
Nice, yeah.
So we're bringing that to hospitals, their facilities, medical conventions, annual conventions, and other affiliated industry functions. So, now you're right now you're performing on stage. You're active right now, right? Yeah.
So I'm asking this because I kind of sense a little bit of a change. When I was younger, a lot of my being Jewish, I'd be able to talk about it and no problem. Now, recently, it seems like, you can't even mention anything, and then you're going to get a bunch of comments in the section because of everything that's going on. Have you felt any heat lately?
Yeah. You can't do anything. But I figure now I'm not comparing myself to any great artist. Okay. I'm just saying that when Van Gogh or Warhol or any of the artists that you like, and when they sit there with their easel and the canvas, they're not saying, are they going to like this shade of blue? Yeah. Should I put a little orange there? No, someone's going to not like this. They don't say that. They go, I'm putting the blue here, I'm putting the orange there, and that's what I'm doing. But this Me Too movement just got a little, in this cancel culture. I know a lot of comedians that don't want to go to colleges anymore because they do a joke. The crowd goes, because they think they're not supposed to laugh. It's like, oh, I can't do that. That's all boo. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It gets to the point where you don't know what to say. I used to do a joke where, after my divorce, I wanted to break the ice, but, with all the talking to women, but with all the Me Too movement, you don't know what to say. Like if you see a woman eating an apple, you could say, nice looking apple. But if she's eating a pear, you can't say that.
Nice. That's clean. That's cute, Yeah,
it's cute, but you can't say, I don't do the joke anymore because I'm way past the divorce and I'm with someone, so I talk other jokes. But but I'm saying, you just don't know. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to say. People come in and they start telling you their pronouns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where'd that come from?
Well, being, not to be too controversial today, but being Jewish, you got that good joke, your parents a doctor Jewish, and all that. And then if you can't even do that now this week, because of, so, everybody wants to be openly, everybody can be openly racist now, I guess, with Jews or something.
Right.
It seems like it's okay. It's like, how do you navigate through that? Just don't do that real, or you say fuck it, or I'm gonna work that into, some guys, are navigating it around. Like let's say Nikki Glaser. She's not. I don't really. She had this amazing set, but she doesn't say say anything. I'm Jewish, and a lot of the racist Jews don't know that she's Jewish, anyways. So yeah. So she's navigating it that way, which is fine. But have you ran into some issues lately? Just because, but Bob Miller,
no,
his name.
No, I haven't done. I used to say, I'm Jewish. My line was, I'm a doctor and a comedian. How is that possible? I became a doctor because my parents are Jewish and they made me.
Yeah.
And I started doing comedy because I'm a bad doctor.
Yeah.
But, that's the only thing I talked about being Jewish. I had some other stuff about being Jewish about that I would bring in medical school. My parents spent a lot of money for my education, and they asked me for advice, and don't take it because all they have is chicken soup, and that'll cure everything. And I started telling that in morning rounds. My classmates are all smart. They're studying every night, and I'm at the comedy clubs trying to get stage time. And what do you think that, doctor? And they're saying, well, this is an efficacious study, and I think this would probably be advantageous to give it try a short course of antibiotics. And Dr. Miller, what do you think? I think chicken soup would work real good here.
Those are great jokes. And I think that up until like 7 months ago, there wasn't really that much of a problem to say that stuff.
No, but I just, when I was younger, I would get in people's faces. Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind. I don't mean literally, but I mean, I wasn't afraid. I'm Jewish. We can say about it. Come on, talk to me now. I got the light and the mic. Go ahead, say something.
Yeah.
But the older I get, I want a good set. I want the crowd to like me.
Right.
I want the booker to say, hey, that was a good set. Why don't you come back? So unfortunately, you have to sometimes. But now, if somebody starts something, well, bet your ass I'll finish it. But I'm not going to go, promoting.
Right.
A stereotype.
The majority of people are not like that, and it's really a fringe, thing. So, and this will pass. This not to sound like a philosopher, but this shall too pass.
That's what they said 2,000 years ago. Yeah. And we're still waiting. Okay. We're still waiting.
It goes in waves. We're going through a rough wave. It'll always be the malaise will maybe always be there, but hopefully this wave will kind of dissipate. We had a good run there for a while, didn't we? In the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, we had a really good run, but I don't want this to sound anything but objective. I heard the ambassador to the Middle East, one of the countries, spoke at the JUF in Chicago.
Yeah.
And he said, why does he want to speak and why is he proud to be a Jew? He said something about the chosen people. Why were the chosen people? He said, we are 0.1%, 0.1% of the world's population.
Right.
Yet we have 2/3 of the Nobel Prizes.
Right.
Okay. So, and as long as we're keep doing that, we're overachievers. We're successful. Our whole familial structure is based on you got to be better than me. Whatever I'm doing, if I'm a bricklayer, you're going to be a better bricklayer than me, and your kid's going to be better than you. Otherwise, that's our whole legacy, right?
Right.
Education and to be a mensch. All right. And as long as we keep doing that, people who don't want to do that are going to say, what the fuck are they doing? Look, they got everything. Well, we're working for it. We're not sitting around, cracking a 40 every day. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get into politics.
That I've been toying around with and writing lately. And that is throughout history, it's like, why are Jews hated? It's like, wait, one religion, one God? Fuck those guys. And then everything throughout history is like, fuck those guys. Because wait, you're a small group and you're very successful. Oh, fuck those guys. It's like, it goes on and on and on, throughout history. It's kind of like a lesson. And I know you can't write a book that says Jews, yeah, fuck those guys. But it's like,
but you could write a book that says, fuck those guys. That's a very interesting topic because you can go throughout history, all the way, and you can end it with, now, or you can end it with the 19th, was it June 19th in Tulsa?
What was
that was the Black Wall Street.
Oh yeah.
They were very successful. Look at them. Fuck those guys. That's
right.
That's what it is. And it's fuck those guys. But then the tag or the corollary is like, what, you want me to go work that hard? No, fuck those guys. Right. They're making me look bad. If they're working, fuck those guys. Right? That's the way I see it. And that's why people don't like someone. Because they make them reflect on themselves and the result is bad.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, it's funny is that you talk about anti-Semitism and stuff. You rarely see, and Asians have, especially Chinese, have the the same kind of work ethic as our people. I believe, they work hard, they stress education, and the kids got to be better. Number one son is better than me. All the way that you never hear them going, "Oh, fuck those guys."
There's a lot of Asians. A small group.
There are. I
think a small group that sticks out is.
No, I mean the Asians. The Asians don't say "fuck us."
Well, not to our faces, at least. But no,
that's true. That's true.
I actually love Asian culture because it's one built on a lot of it's built on honor and integrity. But not to brush
like being a mensch.
Yeah. Especially I love Japanese culture because it's so like everything you hear and see is always based on on honor.
Honor and yeah.
So tough subject, but I thought talking to another lunchman, and I thought I'd address it in a comedian and how you have to navigate through that stuff. It's interesting times. So what's for the future for you? Like what do you got planned in the next? Did you plan? I'm sure, doctor, you probably plan out the next 5 to 10. What do you?
No, I don't plan out 5 to 10 years. I just started this thing. I just started the Dr. Bill's Traveling Medicine Show. Mm-hmm. And we filmed at the hospital Wednesday, putting together a sizzle reel, and we're going to start marketing that. Where we bring the funny to you. We'll bring the funny to you by Zoom. We'll bring it in person. We'll bring it to your function, to your facility, to your event. And I did several hospital Zoom shows, and I used some well-known comedians. Marsha Warfield, Rich Scheidner, Adam Ferrara.
Yeah, she had. Remember her HBO?
Yeah,
she's talking about the desert. They bring you some wheat. She said, "You ever try to eat some dry fucking wheat?" That's a great joke. I don't know there was like 1980 or mid 80s. She was on a special.
Oh, she's had a study. I know Marsha 40 years. We were very good friends. We're still good friends.
Yeah,
she's great. Yeah, so that's the future for me. I got some local shows up here. A little while ago, I headlined the Improv. I got a show coming up at CG's Comedy Club in Bolingbrook, and then some showcase places at the Laugh Factory. Some showcase spots.
What a wonderful situation you made for yourself. Wonderful career. A wonderful, and you got to do it on your terms, which a lot of comedians don't get to do. I think it's fantastic. Please tell everybody they can find out more about you.
Well, I got a website, drbillcomedy.com. You can email me, Dr. and it's DR, not the word, drbill at drbillcomedy.com. And I got a website there. You can look at some shows coming up, although I'm really lax for updating. I'm kind of procrastinator, which is not really good for a doctor. You shouldn't procrastinate. But I got to update. Tell my IT person. I got an IT person. Everyone has a guy for that. Right. I got an IT guy.
Good.
He's got to upgrade the thing, and that's how you can find out about me.
You should really check out his material and what he's doing. It's really tight. You're using some of your superpowers, your doctor skills, great writing, and there's not a lot of fat in the routine. It's really nice, and all those reps that you've done, you could tell because your LPMs, the laugh per minutes, that this guy is getting and how tight it is. I'm like, oh, listen to this. This is, maybe some of that medical career actually helped you and vice versa. So it was a pleasure. And
thank you.
I look forward to hearing more about you in the future.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure, Michael. Thank you for having me on the show, and let's stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us. Gear up for your next adventure and head over to Bolator.com to check out the amazing Bolo Pack and their other innovative outdoor gear. Catch you next time.